For a long time, I had this inner calling. You know, there's more to study. There are other ways to study. Of course, I couldn't really figure out how and which way it would come about. But anyway, about 10 years ago, I was at a talk with the Dalai Lama at Emory University in Atlanta, which is really one of the main universities in the US. And it all started triggering in my head, these contemplative practices, these traditions, you know, the stuff that I'm deeply involved in, there are routes and avenues and very interesting ones of people looking at studying, etc. Of course, I was coming from a unique angle as somebody who was deep trained, old world, one-to-one, guru shishya, Eastern style, so to speak. So me coming in to then what you'd call the Western academic PhD doctoral world. But anyway, it's a world I've gone into and embraced, and here I am more or less at the end of it, you know, almost this PhD conclusion. And especially now as I'm in this write-up phase, it's a very interesting period of full acknowledgement and deeper understanding of the tradition, what's really said in those texts, how to take it and translate it. And then we put that in like physiological terms in ways these practices work, and I consider that important because you might be doing one of these practices, but you're really doing some physical technique that looks like it, but may not actually be the intention of it under the name of yoga. And that's where, of course, you know, the specific training, teaching comes in, and the inner focus. And with science, of course, there's a limitation of how much you can explore, what you can do in an actual experiment, etc. But we're in a world that is dominated by technology, dominated by medical information, dominated by a lot of data, tech, etc. And to take these traditional practices that have survived, it shows you they're already quite interesting and good. They've survived a long time. Like thousands of years, really, and anything that lasts that long has to have a certain benefit and value for the people. So really the question comes to, well, you know, how can we better look at this given the kind of technology and material we have today? Otherwise, you know, to ignore that and just take on word what's in those texts, etc., would be, you know, semi-blind, naive. Because my experience is some of the statements in some of these texts are actually inaccurate, you know. But some, especially when they get into more of the spiritual experience, are quite profound. Yet science has a hard time actually getting at the spiritual experience side of it. So we're back to more the physiological, psychological, and we use that as a proxy, right, a placeholder, search for maybe one's inner development. So my interest in this whole science, yoga, meditation field is to understand it in its like its original intention, and be able to translate that and put it out in layman's language as well as like scientific terminology. Because if there are plenty of other researchers and scientists who are studying meditation practices, mindfulness, and the yoga as one big word, without it being as science should be, more clearly defined, more clearly explained, because there's so many aspects to yoga that really, you cannot claim it as this same study when you see 20 different papers, you see. So part of my role in a way is to really clearly delineate, explain, break out the different aspects, and then it's those different aspects, just like if you broke down the world of vitamins, you know, you studied a part of vitamin E, or you know, this part of vitamin C, or a combination of those. So it would be the same with these practices. And there are many practices, and not everybody does all of them, or you do different ones at different times. And so these are all the things to be looked at, better understood, the effects of certain practices at different times, by who and when. And that's really the interest, and hopefully that helps people grow in the practice of this, but also, you know, how that adds to well-being, health, and then eventually, you know, spiritual growth.